Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where in today's episode, you'll hear two stories. The first one about OP getting back at his old classmates, and the other involves a woman trying to commit insurance fraud. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today, and do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So, this story takes place just a couple of months ago, but I'll give you some backstory. In my school, I was picked on pretty badly. Time passes though, and we've graduated and moved on. Yet once or twice, I've met my old school tormentors and had to deal with them since we live in a smallish town. It wasn't a big deal though, just someone who hasn't let old habits die and them being told off. Otherwise, everybody else I went to school with just did the same thing I did and moved on. This guy was one of those who couldn't let it go, and due to circumstance, I had to deal with him. Now understand that I do love my job. I'm a computer geek that's IT. It's a nice position where I get to choose how my work gets done with great pay. To me, it's a dream come true. So with this in mind, understand that I will fight tooth and nail to keep it if the need arises. So the whole thing starts with a simple encounter. At the facility I work at, we have contractors. People come in all the time and do a job and then leave. In this case, my school bully was working with one of those contracted companies. One day, I get one of my usual support calls and went down to see what was up. On the way down, we saw each other. I walked past him in the opposite direction. Now at first, I didn't recognize him, as it's been almost 20 years. So I nodded politely and moved on. It didn't click until later who he was, and at that time, I decided to ignore it. I had my own job to think about, and hey, we're all adults now. So 2 days later, the sign started. I was doing some stock audit work on the floor when one of the assembly workers I know wanted to ask me a question. So I said sure, and he asked me if it was true that in school I was expelled for assaulting a classmate, sexually. Now, I won't lie, I was really taken aback. The answer, of course, was a resounding no. I was pissed, so I asked him who would bring up such a thing. He told me that a contractor from a certain company was talking to him and a few others, and he brought it up. He said the guy talked a lot of hateful smack. He told me he didn't believe it, but he wanted to hear it from me. Fair enough. I asked for more details about the smack-talking perp, and lo and behold, it was my high school pal. Now, I did not want to deal with this. I was happy, and I didn't want to jeopardize my job by confronting a person who would just deny it, and then potentially start even more trouble. Instead, I called my brother who works as one of the maintenance managers. I convinced him to tell me what company that guy worked for. I explained the situation, and he told me to leave it be because within a couple of months when the work is done, they would move on. I would never see him again. Now, it was understandable, but I'm a little paranoid and wanted to keep my wits about me just in case. So, for about a week, I stalked the group that the guy worked with. I would simply walk by and make a note of who he was working with. After he moved on, I would casually ask everybody how things were going. Now, the common thread was that one of the contractors on site really hated my guts and talked a lot of crap about me. Multiple people told me that when he noticed me around, he would go into small tirades about how I did this, how I did that, and how much of a dumbass I was when we were younger. He would also spread false rumors about me, telling them that I was a druggie and that my mom is a raging alcoholic. Things like that. Now, the thing is that everything I heard was very nostalgic in a bad way. So after this, I decided that it would be best to keep on damage control. I know how things can be. If a rumor's heard enough, people can start to believe it. I didn't want to confront him either, since I figured nothing would come of it. My brother was right. About a month later, this idiot would be gone, but fate had other things in mind. So my boss, being the nice guy he is, called me up one day asking if everything's okay. The rumors had gotten back to him, and he just wanted to ask me about them. So I explained the situation and my plan for damage control. He understood, and told me to keep it up. Unannounced to me, he was annoyed enough to talk to Bully's boss about what was going on, which led me to my first real encounter with my bully. So this happened next night. I was heading to my car because I was done with the night, and Bully was waiting outside for me by the back lot. I was halfway to my car when he called out, "Hey, we need to talk." I turn around and see him, but not wanting to deal with it, I ignore him and continue to my car. That's when he says, "Don't you ignore me. I've been through hell because of you." So this is where he speeds up and got between me and my car. So now I have no choice but to listen. If I tried to go all the way back to the lobby, he would just get in my way again. He says, "So, I got bitched out by my boss because of you. Someone said I was acting inappropriately while on the job, and I think it was you. I say to him, okay, and this involves me how? He says, I know it was you who told my boss. I tell him, dude, I didn't tell anybody about anything. I don't care, just leave me alone. He said, no, I know you. I know all about you. I remember the good days when we used to stuff you inside lockers and trash cans, and I bet you'd love to have some revenge, wouldn't you? Well, I'm not gonna let that happen. You'd better know your place, or I'll make you know it. Now, I was getting pissed off at this point. This isn't a hellhole of a school, we're adults. I told him, don't you dare threaten me. Now, I remember this point very well. He gets a real smug look on his face, like someone who just won an argument. I can also remember having to hold myself back from punching that smug face. He says, do you think anybody gives a damn about you? Nothing's changed. And that's when he said it, the nickname that still pisses me off. The nickname that him and his friends called me every single day. He says, I bet I can get everybody to hate you because you're worthless. By this point, my emotions were in the open, and I think he noticed because instead of stopping, he picked up momentum. He continues on and says, I've seen you and your ugly wife around town, maybe I'll tell her too. I bet she'd leave your ass if she knew how much of a bitch you were. What, are you upset? Are you gonna cry like you used to? How about this? I'll say what I want, when I want, and there isn't a damn thing you can do about it. So with that, he left and walked off. And I stood there for a bit and thought, I was now seething. Now, I really wanted to punch his lights out, but I know if I did, I would just get fired because we have a no tolerance rule at work. And plus, we're adults, we shouldn't do those kinds of things. Then I had an idea. He was right. By this point, I wanted revenge. He had insulted me and my 5-month pregnant wife, and nope, I'm not gonna put up with this. So I went home and vented to my wife. The next day, I went into motion. The first thing I did was talk to security, as they had cameras for the parking lots. So I requested the video for the time frame that him and I had our little chat. The video didn't have audio, but at least I had proof of his approach. The video showed him coming up the back lot and hiding behind the fence, and then it showed his approach as I was walking towards my car. Then it showed him aggressively getting in my face, and that made it obvious that he was waiting for me since he had no reason to be there. They copied the video, and as per my request, sent it to my boss, and then sent it to the head honcho, the guy who runs the entirety of the plant. I then called my boss and explained the email and what happened. I also explained that I sent it to the head boss, so we ended up scheduling a meeting for later that day. It was just me, my boss, and the big boss. It was mainly to explain the video and what happened. So during the meeting, the big boss got the contracting company's owner on call. I then once again explained myself. I explained the threats, and that I felt that my safety was put in jeopardy. Now, my workplace has a no tolerance rule for threats like this, so I knew it would be taken more seriously if I added that in. So now for the results. During the talk after I explained what happened, the contracting company told us that they would fire him on the spot. The head boss also called the police, as per the rules for anything like this. The police came, took a statement from me, my boss, and saw the video, and then arrested the guy during his lunch break, due to threats of violence on employees. So long story short, I wasn't told what the guy was charged with, since the county decided to charge him on their own. But I do know he was slapped with a fine. After that, I was allowed to get a restraining order just in case. I never did see him again, and good riddance. Guys, that guy definitely deserved to lose his job over that, and so much more. I despise people who pick on others, like I can't stand them at all. I'm so glad OP decided not to take crap from the guy who thinks they're still in high school. Like, come on dude, 20 years later and you've still got the same childish mentality of picking on others and calling it the good old days where I used to stuff you into lockers and trash cans? Like, wow, it really goes to show that some pathetic idiots never grow up. So, this story took place back in the 1990s. I'd recently been medically retired from the military and was attending college in Texas. My wife was working in her chosen field while I did my level best to decide what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Anyways, one day I left campus, going around the backside to avoid the traffic. I was heading over to pick my wife up for lunch and ended up sitting behind another car at a stop sign. Now, the car in front of me was a brand new Chevy. It was candy apple red, being driven by a very attractive blonde. And there I was, an old sailor in an old pickup, just listening to the radio thinking about lunch when the Chevy drove into the intersection, and then it stopped. Now, I didn't think anything of it, so I hadn't done more than put my hand on the gear shift in preparation of pulling up, when suddenly, with a suitable squeal of a tire, the Chevy shot backwards at me. I slapped the shift into reverse, but it was too late. The little Chevy smashed into the back of my truck, doing about 25 or 30 miles per hour. After a second, I cut my engine, got out to the cab, and walked around to the front of my truck. The good news was, I could see that I wasn't going to have to worry about that loose belt squeal anymore. The bad news is that the front of my little pickup was pretty much totaled. The grill drove back into the radiator, there was water all over the pavement, the headlights were smashed, and I bent down and noted that there seems to be oil leaking as well. With a sigh of total incomprehension, I walked up to the passenger door of the little red Chevy and its blonde driver. Now, I was pissed, but I wasn't enraged. I guess I was still trying to figure out exactly what had happened and why she ended up stopping mid-turn and putting it in reverse like that. I looked through the tinted window, and she was on the phone, screaming to someone. With all the cell phone silliness I'd seen since leaving the military, seeing her yapping on one really doesn't surprise me. Although, had I thought about it, I should have wondered who exactly she was calling. Instead, I tapped on the window and she turned a bland face to me. She then screams into the phone, loud enough to penetrate the glass, saying, "Oh my god, this crazy man has a tire iron." Now, naturally, I spun around and looked behind me, thinking someone else was behind me. And then the nickel dropped. I turned in a slow circle and noted that there were no businesses, houses, or apartments in view, nor was anybody on the sidewalks or walking down the roads. For that matter, the only traffic was several blocks away in any direction. Her little car was sitting at the stop sign, almost exactly where it had been when I pulled behind her. I stepped back and looked at our vehicles, and yep, it looked for the world as if I had rear-ended her. I'm thinking, damn, the blonde had set me up. I quickly walked back to my truck, thinking as fast as I could. Any minute now, a police car was gonna show up, called by the little blonde, expecting to find a crazy man with a tire iron, and I dearly needed to not be that man. So I pulled out my tire iron from behind my seat and threw it as far as I could into a nearby field, and then I jumped into my truck. It was a slim chance, but it was the only hope I had. I then made sure the truck was in reverse. I then belted myself in, slammed my face into the steering wheel, opened my door, and slumped halfway out the open door at an uncomfortable angle. I just went limp as the police car screeched to a halt. I then ignored the policeman screaming at me to get out of my truck, trusting that my limp body would not move him to open fire. He then edged his way over, noticed my bloody nose, and tugged at my eyelid, and let me drop back into position. I stayed limp while he checked on the blonde, who was near hysterical from fright, over the lunatic with a tire iron. Until she saw me, that is. I was hoping she'd be too involved with concocting her own story to notice what I was doing. At seeing my body hanging limply below the driver's side door of my truck, she stammers to a halt. A second set of sirens had been getting closer, and the policeman has now told the silent blonde to stay in her car. A few seconds later, someone cuts me out of my seatbelt and lays me on the ground. A competent set of hands checked my vitals, and within a few seconds, a harsh and demanding smell flooded my clotting nose. Now, I did fight it for a few seconds, and made a pretty good display of a man coming around after having been knocked out. I immediately threw myself to the side and stopped, half being restrained and half staring around to see what happened. The medic sat back when I sat up. I then looked at the front end of my truck and moaned, "What the hell did that idiot do to my truck?" He told me to lie back down and started asking me professional questions about where I hurt and if I could feel my toes and all that crap. Every few seconds, I'd look back at the wreck and mutter something about an idiot backing up like that and what the hell he'd been smoking. Little bits of angry stuff. The policeman, having gotten the blonde statement, walked over and asked me if I felt like talking. I said I felt fine, just a little sore. The medic okayed it and helped me to my feet. I then gave the officer my license and proof of insurance and included my retired military ID card. I then sat on my front seat, acted like I just noticed it, and asked what happened to my seatbelt. He explained that I had to be cut out of it, and I shrugged. I told the policeman, just another item for his insurance company to pay for. What the hell was his story, officer? Why did he back up that way? The policeman looked sharply at me and asked me what I meant. I described exactly what happened, but concealing the fact that I knew it was a female driving the Chevy, and kept referring to her as a him. After I got done and he'd finished writing it all down, he asked if I had any proof. I told him, "Proof? What do you mean proof?" I frowned at him and let my jaw drop a bit and said, "Hey, wait a minute. You ain't telling me that that idiot said that I did this, are you? He admitted that the other driver's story was that I rear-ended her, not him, and then threatened her with a tire iron. I frowned again and informed him that I didn't even have a tire iron, that it's sitting in the garage of my house just a couple of hours away. I then allowed him to search the cab of my truck and moved aside, and then caught a very lucky break when he noticed, without me having to point it out to him, that my truck was still in reverse. He gets out of my cab frowning, and then asked me to stay where I was and walked up to the Chevy. He then asked the blonde to step out of her car, and when she'd done so, leaned into the open driver's side door. After a few seconds, he stood back up and asked the girl to repeat her statement of what happened. Now, I'll admit, it was great acting on her part, but she almost blew it by being somewhat puzzled when he didn't react. Instead, he asked her to go on and describe everything that happened after the accident and everything she'd done. She then backed down from the tire iron story, saying it might have been simply a reflection on her window, and also insisting that I had beaten her window and that I'd been simply putting on an act for their benefit. So the policeman then looks over at the medic, who slowly shook his head. The policeman then asked her if she had tried to drive away or had she immediately shut off her engine. She said the engine had died, and no matter what lies I'd said, that she'd never tried to leave the scene of the accident. The policeman nodded once and asked the medic to step over. He then asked the medic to sit in the Chevy and confirmed that it was in reverse. When I last saw the little blonde, she was honestly crying. She was also handcuffed and being driven away, arrested for making a false police report and some legal mumbo-jumbo about trying to run a con. And my favorite part was assault and battery. So, once she had realized that she had blown it, about the same instant she was handcuffed, she starts to weep and explain that she didn't have any money for the payments on the car and that her only option was to fake an accident for insurance fraud. She then accused me of faking too, saying I hadn't been injured and she had no idea how my nose was bleeding and I was knocked unconscious. I then heard her yell, "You gotta believe me, I would not lie about that." So I signed my name to an almost letter-perfect statement of events over at the police station, being careful to never mention in my own statement about how my nose got banged up or how I ended up unconscious and hanging out the door. The arresting officer's reports, as well as the EMTs, had also noted that it appeared that I'd either been partially ejected by the impact or might have been trying to get out of the truck at the last moment. It turns out her car insurance was good. They paid for my little truck's repair. The damage wasn't as bad as it originally looked, thank God. And I had to drive a loaner for the next week, also taken care of by her insurance company. And the irony of this that'll make you laugh is that it was a little red Chevy. It was a nice car that my wife and I had a ball riding in, but it was way too expensive for a guy like me to drive every day. Hell, a nice car like that might have made me try something stupid like that to make the payments. Guys, sketchy people like this is a good reason that I believe everybody should own a dash cam. It would have been so amazing if OP had one and just patiently waited for the police to show up and for the crazy girl to spew her fake story and then go, "But officer, you might want to take a look at this. Here's what actually happened." But I guess what OP did was pretty good as well. You gotta give OP props for that though. His acting was definitely better than her acting. My friends, let me know in the comments what you would have done in this situation. I'm not sure many people would have willingly bashed their face into the steering wheel like that, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /ProRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and if you did, leave a thumbs up for good old Stevie boy. And if you missed the last episode on this channel, I will link it right here. An entitled Karen trespasses to have a party and ends up in jail for 44 days and ruins her own wedding. Guys, check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.